Okay, so I haven't had quite as much time to work on videos lately because I've got this other project going on right now that's kind of taking up a bit of my time. Until I get that done, the videos might not be as regular as they had been. In this video, what I want to do is I want to get a new baseline run done on this engine because there's been a few things that have changed, not so much on the engine side of it, but on the dyno side of it. While I'm doing that, I want to do a little bit more work on the automated load control for the absorber and maybe get that to work a little bit better. The way that I'm doing it, controlling it manually, has a lot of inconsistencies in it, and it can really cause pretty significant differences in the results depending on how the engine speed increases through the pull. That's what I want. That's one of the things I want to do, is get that working a little bit better. So I guess the next thing to do is just to get this thing started and warm it up and just start experimenting with that new load control. And at bare minimum, we can at least try to get a new baseline run on this today. So let's get started with that. I'm done out here. I'm going to take the data that I've got into the house, and we can start reviewing that and start looking at the numbers from before, maybe do some corrections on them. So let's get the data inside the house, have a look at those things, and we can go from there. All right, so here's the data that we got from today. So just keep note of the column labels here and what they mean. We'll mostly be looking at this stuff here today, the horsepower and the torque. That's that first try we made with the automated load control, and that's not working very well, and that's going to need more work than I can do for this video, so I'm just going to move on from there. And then we went on to a manual load control run here, and looks like we came up around 254 horsepower. Now, what I'll say about this stuff here is that a lot of times the horsepower calculation is out of phase with the RPM and torque a little bit, because it's a process that's running separately from these, and actually all three of them are separate processes. But I would say this one here goes along with that one there pretty well. So I would say we had 254 horsepower at 4,889, and it looks like our torque peaked at around 285 and around 4,000 probably. So somewhere in that neighborhood. These are the barometric pressures that we got from that project that we were working on earlier on another video, and there's the temperatures in there. I put in a table here all the different things that I've done to the engine so far. So that's the very first one we did, and you can read there for yourself the different changes that were made and the horsepowers that went along with them. Now, kind of what I'm noticing today is that we're down about 20 horsepower from where we were the last time we did a performance test on this. I got kind of curious about that. Now, what's different with the engine between this test here and this test here? With the engine itself is that in here, it doesn't seem like I ever did a dyno test after I did that solid lifter conversion. And I also, on this one, it's actually running at 36 degrees advance rather than 35 from before, but those two changes I doubt have much to do with this change here. The other thing that's different between these two is that you can see over here I wrote down the source of the atmospheric conditions, and over here that means that I got it from the National Weather Service, and that DA there means that I got it from my own data acquisition system inside the test cell. So these were numbers probably outdoors, and this is actually inside the room with the engine. So that's not a perfect comparison, but anyway, that is one difference between this test and this test. And another difference is between these two tests is that I did a few different upgrades to the way the dyno control works, even on the manual side. And you may remember that thing where I did with the gear reduction on the outlet valve. That gave me a lot better control as compared to before. The way the engine speed goes up has a lot to do, can have an effect on the horsepower reading itself. There were like 4 different things that were different: the lifter, the ignition timing advance, the way the water outlet valve works, and the way the atmospheric conditions were collected. And then the other thing I did here was most of these I left the same, but there were a couple of them I reviewed again, and I think it was mostly maybe this one here. So the numbers that you're seeing here might be a little bit different than what you might have seen when I did the video about those dyno tests. So if you see a difference there, I looked at them, studied them more, and updated what I thought about it. In this column, these are the uncorrected horsepower values. Over here is the corrected horsepower values, and uncorrected torque and corrected torque, speeds at which those things happened. This is the atmospheric conditions that I recorded. The way I'm doing the atmospheric corrections is with it's the SAE J1349. Now, the last time I talked about this, I got the impression that it wasn't doing anything to compensate for humidity factors. I think it's doing like a general humidity correction. I don't, but it doesn't give me an opportunity to enter in what the humidity was on that day. But I do enter in the atmospheric pressure and the temperature. So again, it was the J1349, but what I kind of found out reading through it more was that this correction factor is also used by the ISO 1585, if that's interesting to you. After doing the corrections on here, the horsepower difference between here and here wasn't nearly as significant as I thought, and one of the big differences between those 2 days and what's apparently quite a significant factor in the horsepower corrections is the temperature. I went over the differences between this test and this test, and anyway, here's all the corrected horsepower numbers right from the beginning of this project I've been working on. One of the reasons I wanted to redo the baseline for today is because of those few changes that were made, and because I wanted to get the baseline test done with the new barometric pressure and temperature sensors that I installed. Now that I got those, I'm okay with moving on. Now I know that some folks aren't too, some people don't really like corrected horsepower values very much, and I kind of wonder if sometimes it's like people only show the corrections when it's beneficial to them, you know. But you can kind of see here that my corrected numbers are actually lower than what I recorded coming out of the crankshaft. So at any rate, to wrap this up, these are the baseline numbers that I'm going to use to compare the results that I get after I make the next change. The next thing I want to do is get a different set of rocker arms on here, and I think that ought to be a pretty interesting test, and get them installed and do some measurements on all that stuff. After all that, that's about all I got for this week, and I'll see you next time.